there are conflict problems all around the world because people don't respect other people's innate needs. And the kind of causes, you know, we've got tribalism, racism, religion, revenge cultures. There's horrible stories going on about people going and killing people because someone in their family joined ISIS in Mosul, and when Mosul's freed, people are going around killing people who are just vaguely associated with that person. This is the revenge culture. It's very primitive stuff. Ignorance is a major problem, as always. The fact that people really are more interested in getting attention, getting power, satisfying their ego in various different ways, rather than actually learning how to be really human, is a major problem. Politics causes problems. My goodness, haven't we seen that this week? Greed, massive, massive problem. When people have a bit of money, they seem to want more, and then they have a bit more, and they want even more, and it goes on and on and on. And some people become unbelievably wealthy, but they're not necessarily any happier for it, of course. You know, I personally have treated millionaires who are deeply depressed for one reason or another. So beneath this situation with all this conflict, we have these innate needs: water, food, air to breathe. You know, all those things are absolutely critical. We need space to spread ourselves about and develop as children and adults. And then we've got all these ones that I've just been talking about, the innate human needs, the givens of human nature. So there'll never be peace, we say, unless it's widely understood. It needs to be in our education system. It needs to be taught to politicians. They have to develop, enough of them have to develop a degree of humility to actually step back from their position of power and telling people what to do and coming up with mad ideas like the king in the story of the feast, and then imposing hardship on people as a result. People have to learn to become wiser. The whole human race does, otherwise we're in real, real trouble.
I think violent extremism is, unfortunately, tragically, a great window to understand actually the power of human givens. There's somebody in this room who wrote a great article, Caroline, about why young Syrians fight. And I read that when she first sent it to me. She works on these issues directly on the ground. I know Fleur does as well. And when I read Caroline's article, I realized it mirrors tremendously what I'm about to say and what Ivan said, and I think what's really going on here. Which, by the way, doesn't mean there are immediate practical answers to the problems we have even in London, but I think it's the right direction. Violent extremism and ISIS, and here's sort of the headline: ISIS is very good at meeting young men's needs. I know that's a kind of strange idea, but it's the truth. They have a formula. They know what they're doing, by the way, as we'll show you. And other groups, not just ISIS. And they deliver, which is why they attract people, unfortunately, and they keep attracting people. And if we don't understand this, we're not going to solve the problem of violent extremism across the world. Now, there's a great quote from a man who's done terrific work on this stuff, Scott Atran. I highly recommend him to anybody interested in understanding violent extremists. He's an anthropologist, American, based in Paris sometimes, written a lot. One of his best-known books is Sacred Values. And it's a quote from Scott: Mr. Hitler has discovered that human beings don't only want peace and security and comfort, to be free from want, they want adventure, glory, and self-sacrifice. This is going to be a major theme of the whole day. We'll see it coming up again and again. ISIS delivers that. I know it's grotesque. I'm not in the least bit trying to say that it's not. But we have to face the fact that they are delivering a tremendous amount, as Ivan said, of meaning to young men who are seeking meaning. They give them a purpose and a profound sense of purpose.
My name is Eva Haurelova, and I work as a policy officer for Syria at the European Union External Action Service. So the External Action Service is a European Union diplomatic body, so I'm based in Brussels, but we also have delegations, you could say embassies around the world. And I really find the course extremely important in acquiring knowledge of the human givens principles, but also in getting practical tips on how to really implement it in my daily life as a diplomat.
Hypnosis is when somebody else is using an artificial method to put you into a trance, a technique they use.
So is EastEnders a type of hypnosis, or the news, or television programs?
Oh yes, yes.
Is that a type of hypnosis?
Oh yes, of course it is. I mean, in news programs, they're deliberately designed to dumb us down, as you know, because they start with pounding music. I mean, News at 10 it has 3 minutes of drum beats, which go on while they're talking. And they can be talking about the most horrendous things that are going on in the world, and they start there, boom, 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 going on. I mean, that's hypnotic, and it makes you emotional, and when you're emotional, you can't think straight. So it's deliberate dumbing down, done by the BBC and other channels. It needs to be explored, all that sort of thing, really, if we want to have an objective understanding of how populations are manipulated.
This whole learning day is also about us. It's not just about learning about other people and how they need to change. It's also about how every individual, myself included, needs to have a more flexible mind over time in order to face these challenges with much more capacity.
I'm Andrew Whitley, and I do conflict resolution work, mainly in the Middle East and Asia. And I've been working in this field and other related fields of international affairs for more than 45 years in a whole series of organizations, including the Elders, which Nelson Mandela established, and also with the United Nations. As a journalist in the Middle East for 16 years also. So this has given me an additional dimension that I didn't previously have. I think that while I might have been subconsciously aware of some of the things that have been talked about with respect to the human and psychological dimension, that I didn't focus on them so precisely. But I have found it useful. It's certainly given me insights and obliged me to open up my mind to things that I hadn't previously anticipated.
I fail to grasp, I think, the difference between conditioning and learning, and where does hypnosis actually sort of fall?
If you haven't thought about it before, haven't studied it, it is new to a lot of people, and it's probably other people in the room are glad you've asked that question. But learning is, you have to attach new knowledge to something that's already inside you. You can't, and that expands the context of the knowledge you already have. But to do that, you have to be able to suspend your critical faculty for a little bit to allow that to happen. Otherwise you'd be rejecting all new information all the time, wouldn't you? So you have that state where you've got some new information in, but real learning means you've got to apply your critical faculty at some point. So you've got to question it, see if it's supported by other experiences in your own life, or what other people have said, or what you read about research in the research, or whatever. And that's how we learn. Conditioning doesn't allow that second part of the process to occur. It doesn't give people a chance to really consider and reflect. It keeps going on, and this is the way, this is the way, this is the way. And it gives you things to do and say and chant or whatever it is to stop you, or including separating you from your family or from your country or whatever it is, so that you become absorbed and by these new ideas which are destructive. Does that answer the question?
I think it makes sense. You're basically saying that in one case you would actually allow for more neurons to connect.
Yes.
But in the other case you're saying that you're just using the same channel, and you sort of
That's it.
walk the same path and use the same whatever.
That's very well put.
Is already there.
Yes, and maybe, wait, do you remember when Ivan presented in the morning and he gave the human givens that were capacities? So maybe when you're learning, you're using the fuller set of capacities. Does that make sense? Including reason, memory, imagination. It's a whole package rather than,
Yes, but you know, if you're in certain types of cults and you question it, you can get executed. Well, that's going to make your survival instinct kick in, isn't it? I'm not going to question this, you know.
My name is Roxana Cristescu. I work for Crisis Management Initiative, which is a Finnish organization focused on mediation and conflict resolution. We worked with John before, so he's worked with us. He works mainly on the Middle East, while I focus more on the post-Soviet world, right? So I could find a lot of similarities to what he was saying about the Middle East. I can see similarities to the post-Soviet, you know, so he was talking about Iran, I was thinking about Russia and what have you. But yeah, I think there's a lot of, I mean, we had this debate before with him on how we can use some of these findings to our work in practice. So I think there's a lot of there that can be unpacked further. And there's some concepts that I think would be useful for the whole conflict resolution field. This whole thing about how do you manage emotions, how do you work with them in a dialogue process, how do you, how are you aware of emotional states when you're working with people in conflict. I think this is fundamental. And the field hasn't been paying too much attention to it because we talk about, conflict analysis and geopolitics and what have you. So we don't go that much into what it actually means for people.
People like black and white thinking. So you have to start at the point, it's also dramatic and it's exciting and it's simple. So we have to understand that most people, I mean, including myself in my life many times, we like it. We have to accept that people like it first in order to see how to get them to move from that to understanding that although black and white thinking could have its moments if a tiger is attacking you, it's probably not useful in everyday life or trying to resolve incredibly complex conflicts where there's all grays. It's almost all grays, by the way. And it's all grays. It's a fascinating level of complexity. It's all grays. Because, people, by the way, because of social media, they look at a conflict, any conflict, they think the whole thing is either a conspiratorial dynamic or it's just some simple two forces colliding. It comes down to the quality and the nature of the individuals involved. The specific person. That's important. That's how gray it is. And then that person's going to have moods. That person's going to have changes of character over time. He may be, or she may be, unelected and somebody else. The flexibility of mind is crucial to attend to this many layers at once.
Yeah, I think the course started with some very interesting way to look at human needs. Of course, we all think about Maslow's pyramid of needs, but this is kind of a Maslow on steroids, where it's much more elaborate and yet very simple to comprehend. So already understanding this as the basis of action and on the basis of what motivates people, then when you start thinking about how to apply it, at least I was thinking about my field, so really almost as a design philosophy, where we can think about designing systems and whatever designers are thinking of, but in this case, political systems or even public installations or whatever we're working on that respond to people's needs. It's almost like a design philosophy that Ivan and John have laid out, at least the way I see it.